everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to be covering an overview of the brand new CRM V6 from Apptivo. So, to get started, we're going to take just a quick moment and explain what Apptivo is in case this is the first video you've seen. Apptivo is an online suite of integrated business applications, including many different apps that cover all sorts of different functions, such as invoicing, project management, supply chain, human resources. But at the core of everything is our CRM system to track sales, support, and general contact management and interactions with customers. And what we've done is we've introduced a brand new layer of our technology, what we're calling version 6, which includes a ton of great new enhancements to the platform. So as far as the way the whole system is structured, everything kind of builds around the CRM, which is why this is one of the first areas that we're tackling with these V6 technology upgrades. And these CRM upgrades will really start to affect all the other components. So as we go through, we're going to quickly explain at a high level what the new CRM is all about. We're going to give you an overview of the key features and everything from that brand new perspective. And then we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at, well, what changes came from V5 into V6. So for you existing users, you know exactly what you need to go in there and try out and what you now have available to yourself. So let's go ahead, let's dive in, and let's get that quick little overview of just the CRM. The way we look at the functionality is we've now broken it down into 4 primary categories. And if you look through these different features, I mean, a lot of them probably look familiar because we've had them out there for quite some time. Although a couple of them might probably look brand new to you because we've got some brand new technology that just came out, in addition to a few more pieces which you're going to notice trickling out over the upcoming weeks. So as far as a quick little high-level overview, everything's still definitely centered around that contextual collaboration, which is your general calendar and email and notes management. Very flexible, available not only in the CRM but everywhere else, although you'll see with the new upgrade, the CRM version has been enhanced. We still have our great IMAP email integration. You're going to see native mobile applications, which we'll actually talk about in just a moment because they've also received some updates. And the Outlook connector is one thing you might not have heard about yet because that's coming out to the public in just a few weeks. Over on the prospecting and sales tracking side, you have your typical lead and opportunity management. One of the other little upcoming preview items is full campaign management. So we'll talk about one of the upgrades that affects mass email capability that's already out there and available, in addition to giving you a little bit of insight into the future, and pipeline visualization. So one great thing you'll see is some new reports that have come into the new version. Then, coming down to performance, you'll start to get into that reporting where we've got a brand new quota management system. So you can go and define a sales plan for the whole organization. It's great for larger companies with more complex sales processes. In addition to doing territory management, we've also got some greater intelligence built into the platform, like analyzing your leads, progressing over to opportunities, and checking out deals you've won, you've lost, being able to analyze competitors, things like that. Lastly, it's all about the integration when it comes to Apptivo. So absolutely, we still carry all the integration between our applications. So for example, when you're looking at a customer in the CRM, you're going to be able to see all the invoices you've ever sent to them. If you're running projects or if you have work orders for them or a quote that you sent them last week, all this information is coupled together into one screen for you. And as usual, everything is built on top of our developer API. So if you need to connect Apptivo to one of your other business software systems, or if you simply want to extend it and add, like, let's say, a special outside reporting dashboard or other tools for your employees, really the sky is the limit when it comes to Apptivo. And one cool thing about the new system is all the documentation for the API, it's built in right inside of the application itself. So that's our quick little overview of just what is CRM all about. Now let's focus in on the key, which is what is new in CRM V6. And before we talk about CRM in particular, let's just go down to what is V6. So you might have already heard a little bit about it. So we previously released what we call our homepage and collaboration onto our version 6 technology. And the way we move throughout our process is we're basically going one app or one set of applications that are related to each other, and then we upgrade them. So during this upgrade process, what it's doing is it's not really changing the way that the product inherently works. So as far as if you're worried about concerned of retraining your employees or having to learn where all these new items are, really it's a very smooth transition. It's very intuitive. You'll notice all the different functionality, like where to access settings or create a record or how to search and find records. We've kept all that functionality the same, but what we've done is we've introduced a ton of little more minor upgrades that are really going to make a huge impact on how usable the system is for you. So if we look at just V6 in general, there's three key areas of improvement: the interface, navigation, and features. So by interface, the biggest thing you're going to see is we've now moved on to a responsive web design. This means that you're going to be able to access the whole web application from any device, whether it's a high-resolution tablet, your typical high-res desktop, or even just a tiny little mobile phone. You now get full functionality across any device. What you'll see is just everything, it looks a little bit more modern. So we've updated our whole icon set. Everything just looks a little bit cleaner, a little bit more brought up to the standards of today. And then you'll see some more functional improvements, such as, well, for example, when you're drafting an email, we've just allowed a lot more space to go and fill in the email. So there's little things like this that you're not going to notice them all at once, but as you're going through, you're going to start to feel like, well, I'd really just be able to get more information out of the same amount of space that I used to. So that's one of the huge improvements, is just making better use of the room inside of your web browser. The next is navigation. So putting in some tools for you to use in order to just get around the app faster, to reduce the amount of clicks that you have to take to perform your actions. And one of the very cool things is if you've been a longtime Apptivo user, you've known that you can't use the back and forward button inside of your browser because the URL doesn't change every time. Well, that's no longer true. So in our V6 technology, every time you click a link, the URL will change. This means you can now start bookmarking different pages. So I could go bookmark a few of my favorite reports. I could have direct links to go into a certain application. Or I can just use my back and forward buttons to really just speed up my process of browsing, like clicking on a record from search results and then just hitting the back button to go right back where I was from. Another little improvement on the navigation, which kind of hinted that this would come into play for the email marketing capabilities, is breaking down the paging into results of 50. So we used to offer infinite scroll, came with several different inherent problems for the users, so we made this move over to just nice clean pages of 50. Makes it much easier to navigate through result sets and, let's say, email the first 50 records, then email the next 50, the next 50. So certain actions are going to become more simple with this. Then lastly, you'll just see that there's a couple more kind of defaults and new features we've added in that assist your navigation. So for example, when you click on one of your views, so let's say bring up a list of your high priority support cases, well, now you can define a default column set, or what we call list layout now. So that way it has the exact information you want for that particular link. And then if you click on, let's say, cases by status or cases by employee, you can now see a different column set. And that can all just be configured inside of the system now. Lastly, this is the big one, is the new features. So there are a couple kind of general features that just as you update an app to V6, you'll see available. One of those is the master currency conversion. So you'll already see this functional inside of the sales applications, where there's one central area to configure currency conversions for any other currencies you need to work in. And then when you go look at reporting, let's say you bring up a report of opportunities and you have a couple in USD, a couple in AUD, a couple in GBP. The idea is that that report will actually consolidate and convert everything back up to your master currency, so that way you can analyze everything on a level playing field. Otherwise, the contextual collaboration features, which you've already seen them come out in Homepage V6, but you'll notice that all those improvements that came with Homepage V6 are now going to be applied to those same task management, notes, and documents tabs inside of each of the CRM apps. And then the key, which is what we're mostly going to be covering today, and we're going to get into right now, is there's unique features in every app. So of course, sales apps have different needs from our customer support ticketing app, the Cases app. So each one of these has gotten a couple different features. Some of them are kind of standard features, but a lot of them are completely unique. So on the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what has changed. And as you can see, there's quite a bit that has been updated. So what we've done is we've taken the existing set of CRM applications. The only one that's excluded right now is work orders, which we will be getting to in a little bit. And we've upgraded all of them to V6. So customers contacts, leads and opportunities, your standard CRM and sales set, and then cases for the customer support ticketing system. All those are now on the V6 technology. And then we've introduced 3 brand new applications. So for the competitors app on the end, really, this app is pretty basic. I'll show you a quick little feature inside of opportunities where you can now track the losses of opportunities. And one of the things you can do when you lose an opportunity is track which competitor that you lost it to. So you'll just have an app to manage a central database of each of these competitors. Pretty straightforward on that one. Territories, very similar. Territories and sales planning, though, these are actually going to be available only on the Ultimate plan. These are definitely designed for larger organizations with more complex sales needs. And what they do is territories really just takes the base territory management that Apptivo's always had, and still has in regular V6, by the way, and we've just built on top of that. So building in rules like automatically routing leads to an employee based on the territory that they're assigned to, or being able to run territory simulations. So for example, when an employee leaves the company, you can look at how much revenue they are making from each one of their territories, how much their quota amounts were, and then you can go and drag and drop different territories and accounts onto different users to kind of get everything set up right and get your plan together before executing and reorganizing your whole territory system. Sales planning, that's really one of the key new improvements. So if you're interested in defining quotas and actually tracking the goals of how each employee is doing against the quota, we have quite a few new cool tools available inside of here. And I'm going to show you how I can go define the whole sales plan for my organization, and then how it's realized through doing manager level and just simple employee level reporting inside of the Opportunities app. The last thing that's been upgraded, which isn't necessarily directly tied to our V6, is the mobile application. So what you'll see is the mobile app has been totally refreshed. It definitely has gotten quite a few new little features, but in general it's just been refreshed to have that modern, fresh design, match that new light blue color scheme that we've done from the web application, and take advantage of all the new V6 improvements that are available in the web app. So as far as moving forward, what you can expect from the mobile side is, although the website is now responsive and you can access it from a mobile device, we still recognize the advantage of having a native mobile app that's specifically designed for a touchscreen device. So we're going to continue to develop these native mobile applications, and as you see a new V6 app come out on the web, you can anticipate that the equivalent mobile application should come out in about 1 month afterwards. So we'll keep moving forward on that, but absolutely go ahead, you can download these apps right now, and they will work and look just like the new CRM app. Okay, so now let's dive in and let's talk about just if we're gonna throw out a couple of the biggest new improvements, high level features. It really comes down to this list of 5 right here. Of course, there's tons of little things, but as far as like the major adjustments and additions that we've added, the first thing that's going to be most noticeable is when you go to the Opportunities apps, getting these new graphical dashboards. So these are going to show us all different sorts of cool things. I'll hop on them the next slide, but lots of new kind of graphical dashboards, and then you'll see on the last item, new reports. One of the big pushes of V6 is adding more intelligence to the software. We feel like up until this point, Apptivo has done a pretty good job of being able to track and organize all of your data, but it hasn't necessarily given you the information and the insights that you need from just using that information. So we're trying to take that next step in the evolution of the product and really allow your data to work for you and tell you what you need to do and really just make your job easier and hopefully drive some more profit for the business. Otherwise, you have a couple cool little features. They're mostly centered around opportunities, as you can see. And one is just deeper controls on the probability. So when you're going through the stages of a deal, you'll now be able to define what probability should be in there. We can track win and losses and go in and analyze those and figure out, okay, well, who's losing the most deals, who's winning them. The competitor app comes into play there. And also item tracking on opportunities. So previously there was a little bit of a disconnect when you went from the sales process into the next stage, like let's say quoting or a work order or an invoice. So we've taken the next level of enhancements on the items that you can attach to an opportunity, and we'll show you all about that. Okay, so for this, new graphical dashboards. Really, there's quite a few inside of here. And what we're going to do at this point is we're actually going to hop in. I'm going to bounce back and forth between the application, and I'll show you each one of these as we go through the slides. So as far as the new graphical dashboards, these are available inside of the Opportunities application, although you can expect these to start popping up all over the place. And right here, you'll see I've got mine defaulted to the sales funnel. This is one of the brand new dashboards. So all of these will work in a fairly similar manner as far as just when you look at the different items, you'll see, okay, it's broken down by the stages I have, and clicking on an item should take you and filter in on just that list of data. So the idea is you should be able to click on any one of these actionable metrics and then immediately get the information that generated that metric so you can go take the next step. I'm going to come back to performance in a little bit because that it directly correlates to the sales planning application. So that there's a few more things to explain here, but you'll see a great dashboard for managers to look in on exactly how well their team is doing. This one was definitely designed for the larger organizations in mind. And you'll see we have quite a few other charts. So everything broken down, pipeline by stage. In this case, you can see Kenny is totally slaying it compared to the rest of the team, but it's a demo business, so you can expect things like that. We've got this great new win analysis tool, so we can do win and loss analysis. Basically just shows you who's winning the most deals, where those deals coming from, which stage are you winning from. And then on the loss side, look at that. I would love that of 0 loss opportunities. But when you come down here, you'll be able to track why you're losing deals. You can see which competitors are taking the most deals from you and which employees are losing the highest percentage of deals. Then we have lead analysis. So this is all about, well, if I'm running marketing campaigns, let's say I'm mass emailing lists of leads, or I'm going through and I'm cold calling my leads. Well, how effective are these different lists? And when I'm looking at these lead sources, I mean, if I've got a couple different places I purchase leads from, like I buy lists of local businesses, well, I could use this tool in order to figure out which one of these sources is most effective. When I go back to rebuy leads, who should I be rebuying from? So just being able to get some deeper insights onto that flow. And then you'll have just an updated visual version of the 12-month pipeline, which actually has been out there for quite some time. So all these are put together. One of the things I do want to point out, though, which is going to build into the future, is they all center around 2 primary filters, one of which is the period. So what you'll see, especially with the sales planning, is we've introduced the connection between your business financial periods and your sales operations. So you'll see here, I've got mine broken down. I just went with the calendar year for this demo firm, but you'll be able to configure when your financial year starts. And now I can go pull measurements. So if I want to go look at like my pipeline by stage, I could go look specifically in the month of June, or I could look in the whole second quarter, or I could look in the entire year of 2015. So several different ways to slice and dice the data by period. And then I can also slice it up by who this data is assigned to. So to give a little bit of context to this, I'm currently logged in as Kenny Clark. Now he's the owner of the business. So this is a CEO of a medium-sized business. And he has a few people reporting directly into him. And then below them, there's a few more people reporting up. And there's a couple layers of hierarchy below him. So from his perspective, he has access to see everything, but he also does some sales himself. But he also needs to monitor how his different teams are doing. So from up here, you'll see I've got quite a few different filters. So I can either view my metrics across the entire organization, or I can view just the opportunities which are assigned to me explicitly, or I can view all the opportunities which are assigned to anybody on my team, or I can drill in and I could say, well, show me all the opportunities for everybody on Gina's team, or show me the opportunities for specifically Danny, who reports up to Gina. So really I can get down to any level of the hierarchy and see exactly what I'm looking for right here, so long as I have sufficient access. Okay, so otherwise there are quite a few new reports and such. We'll talk about those in just a moment, but let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is opportunity probability controls. So here, this is a part of a series of enhancements into the settings area of really just giving more control and reducing the amount of things that you have to type in. So the goal here is, well, when I'm filling in an opportunity, I don't want my employee to have to guess the probability. As an administrator, I just want to define the probability, and when they go set it to, hey, this is a proposal stage right now, it should automatically update to this 75%. So this one, pretty straightforward as far as how it functions. So inside of the settings area, I've got my sales stages, and here we've got that page. So you'll see the probability control right here. The other thing you can do is determine whether your employees are allowed to override it. So I could come through here and I could say nobody is allowed to change the probability. You must use what's provided by the business. Then otherwise, you'll see chart colors. So all those visual dashboards and such that we were just looking at, you can determine, okay, this stage should be bright green, whatever kind of configuration you want to have there. And otherwise, you have your typical drag and drop, and you can edit things. Pretty standard stuff that was already available in the old application. You'll see one new thing called sales plan category. Once again, I'm going to come back to this when we talk about the sales planning and performance dashboards. But one little kind of tangent I want to go on is you might have noticed that the opportunity settings looks a little bit different. So let's quickly run through this because this is one of the general V6 changes that you're going to see all over the place, which is we've now introduced this layer of hierarchy into the settings. Simply reached the point where we have so many settings available in each app that didn't make sense to have one big list, so we tried to break them apart. A couple of your settings may have been renamed, so I'll quickly give you an overview of what's the same versus what's changed. So in general, if you see something like collaboration or quick links that existed before, it's going to look and function exactly the same. So we didn't go ahead and change those. We simply just put them into different sections. So these belong in general. You'll see your email templates and the email to objects functions. They're now available in a special email section, but they still function the same. You can still go insert variables, everything like that, just like you could before. And then underneath, there'll be one section for that app name. This is like where all the different fields and features that are unique to that application would pop up, in addition to some that are shared between. So you might have heard me say, okay, well, we have the new territories app and it's only available on Ultimate Plan, but yeah, definitely don't worry. We still have our existing territory management system built in. This is available for all users inside of the system. That brand new application simply builds on top of this basic territory management. Then otherwise, you might see a couple brand new settings. So here, for example, is one of the new ones. This will lead us right into the next one, which is talking about the items of interest on the opportunity. So we added one new feature where instead of having your users manually type in the value for each opportunity, instead you can have it automatically calculated from each item that's attached to it. So you have those unique features for this app. You see security, we've got one section for it. And then I talked about the API documentation being built in. So right here in each of the apps, if you have a developer, you want them to go and, let's say, create an opportunity from your website because you have a web form that should be generating deals. Well, you'll see right here, you've got a great little example. And one really cool thing here, so if you're a techie, you'll love this. It'll actually customize and show you the data based on your configuration. Because as you add fields and such to the system, well, the way you need to make an API call changes. So this documentation will stay up to date with every adjustment you make. So for example, here you can see all my different custom fields are built into the API documentation. Very cool feature. So the last part of the settings that I want to show you here is these are where things have changed. So previously, when you were adding and removing fields, if you looked in our V3 or older applications, it was called custom attributes. And then we updated it to called customize app inside of V5. Well, we're changing it once more, although we promise this will be the last time, and we're now going to call it master layout. The reason this is just to give you a little bit of insight into the future, is right now you have a single layout. Well, you can anticipate coming up with multiple layouts in the future. So we're getting ourselves prepped and ready to roll out that type of feature. But otherwise, you'll just notice this is totally refreshed. So yes, it has the same general like drag and drop type functionality, but one thing, if you're a longtime user, you probably recall the accuracy of dragging and dropping was not always perfect. So huge strides of improvements here as far as just speed, moving around. We've improved the way that you actually modify objects and such. So you'll notice I've got a palette to add and remove and switch fields around. And then when I click on a field, it gives us the inspector tab. And then you can control all the different settings of the field, such as typing in values. We've added sorting options onto the drop-down menus. You can define the maximum width for within one of the table columns. Really lots of new little controls that you can do here, but the general functionality will remain the same. Then you have list layouts, and you'll previously remember this being referred to as view column sets. As far as the functionality goes, it remains the same except for one very key enhancement, which is the ability to resize your columns. And at the end, I've got one more slide where we're going to run through a couple like quick little tips of everything I encourage a existing user to perform. So I'll do a little bit of column resizing and I'll show you why that makes such a big difference. Otherwise, it's the same feature. Define your different column sets. The first one is always the default whenever you're bringing up a list of opportunities in this case. Then last one, views. It's still called the same thing, but one key difference you will see here is, well, now we have dashboard versus lists. So for each of the applications that we roll out the dashboard system for, you'll notice now I can go and I can click dashboard and then I can default to one of these. So that's why when I clicked on opportunities at first, it went to sales funnel, but I could go change this to performance. So next time I come in here, it defaults straight to this page. So you'll just configure that with your preference and you'll be all set. Okay, so We talked about this a little bit a moment ago, where we were talking about automatically being able to roll up this amount and turn that into the opportunity value. But there's also quite a few enhancements just on that tab itself. So let's go ahead and let's bring up one of these opportunities. So pretty standard as far as how it looks. Are a couple more controls. So you notice like software details was collapsed by default. That's actually one more configuration setting you can do. So you can determine whether a section should be open or collapsed when you come to this page. So I could load it nice and simple like this, or I could have it load fully open like this. Totally up to you. But then across the top, tabs will look generally the same. Items of interest still has the same general functionality of I can come in, I can add an item, I search from that master database, and then I can go add a couple items in. But once I add an item, there's a few more controls here. So one of which is, let's say if you had verbally given a discount to one of your customers, then here you can go ahead and document that. So I said, yes, I quoted them that, but I gave them 20% off on everything is what I had told them. I haven't actually given them an official quote yet, so I don't want to generate an estimate from it. I just want to indicate that, so if they come back next week and ask for an estimate, I don't have to remember this. So percentage fix is the standard discount because this will directly get applied when we move on to the next stage, whether you're about to send an invoice, launch a project, whatever it is. And then the other key enhancement is now when you're moving on, well, you can win or lose individual items. So this allows you to say, well, I attempted to offer these 3 different services to my customer, but they actually ended up not wanting this one. So I can mark that as lost, mark these as 1, and then when I move forward, it will only copy over the appropriate items. So just a little bit more functionality here, makes it a little bit more flexible and easier to move on to the next stages. All right, so tracking and reporting. We already ran through like the churn customer analysis, win-loss, things like that. And then otherwise what you'll just see is in the Opportunities app, there's a ton of new reports. So they're all over the place. I'm not really gonna dive into anything in particular. But yeah, basically just check out each app. Every app is a bunch of new reports. So for example, if we hop over to the Cases app, you'll see it has the same thing where it's really just, it's gotten quite a bit more versus what we used to have available. And you also see that same level of hierarchy has been brought in here. So like I said, business intelligence reporting, it's one of the biggest pushes. So also, absolutely, I'd like to invite everybody to continue providing feedback on what you would like to see in the reporting area. All right, so now we're getting down to the cool new features. So once again, this is specifically available on our Ultimate plan. It's designed for companies with larger sales organizations and people who are gonna go and set sales quotas and really kind of take a deeper level of monitoring to their sales activities. So what this contains is, first of all, the sales planning and territory management app. We're not really gonna go through territory management today. We wanna keep the focus in on sales planning and then the performance measurements. Really, territories is just a couple additional tools that build on top of that. But on the sales planning side, it's one central application which allows me to analyze myself and anybody who reports up to me. I can define quotas, so you'll see how I can go through and the administrator here, I can define the organization level quota up top. And then what'll happen is it's designed where each user underneath you can log in and they'll see the quota that you've passed down to them, and then they can take that quota and distribute it between themselves. So they'll have an individual quota, which in this case you'll see even as an admin, I can take on an individual quota. And then I have the list of people who report up to me, which by the way, this is tracked in the Employees app. If you're the manager of somebody, they will show up under your team. So then I can see all of my reports and I can define quotas for them. So what would happen is when Susan logs in, she might have a couple people who report into her. So she would see this, if we check out June, she would see her $1.1 million quota, and then she would be able to allocate it downwards. So the whole time when you're coming through, you'll be able to see exactly how much has been allocated versus how much you've set the quota for. So you'll notice my demo data is a little bit off, where I've actually had my team allocate almost $5.5 million in June, but I've only set a quota of $1.4 million. Great team, right? So in here, it's basically just defining everything at this top level as the quota line. And then you'll see the other lines, which are giving you insight into the current and past performance. So this way, yeah, I can go define my plan, but then over time I can look backwards and see, well, how did I actually perform against my plan? So this will tell you exactly how much money you're projecting during each month or how much you did project during that period. It'll say, okay, how much did I actually close? So we can say, hey, individually I closed 1.1 million, which is almost the entire organization quota. So that's great. And overall, our whole team did better. We scored 2.5 million on the 1.4 quota. Then you'll be able to see a pipeline and forecast. And this is where that sales category comes into play. So we're going to hop back into the Opportunities app in just a moment and explain what is the pipeline versus what is the forecast. And then just the deals that you've lost. So you can get an idea of everything, very clear picture, all summarized up in one. And then this will go by your financial years. Once again, there's one central area. When you come in here, it'll ask you to set your financial periods, and then that will carry out throughout the entire system. Okay, so this is your master planning and then also the kind of the historical insights view. But when it comes down to the day-to-day actionable information that comes from this, it's going to be pushed directly into that opportunities performance dashboard. So right here, first thing I want to do is I want to just kind of hone in to get us on a specific set of data. So we'll look over on June and we'll look specifically for the opportunities assigned to me. Now here, what you'll get is you'll just get a couple quick breakdowns so you can see how you're performing against the quota that's been set for you. And you'll see, okay, I've got like pipeline and forecast and such here too. So for example, when I click on pipeline, which had 500,000 in there, you'll see it filters, just like we saw before on the clicking on something in the sales funnel. And here what it's doing is you'll notice, okay, the sales stages. If we expand this a little bit, you'll see I've got qualification, identified decision makers. So I've got two different stages in here. The way these are tied together is by their sales plan category. So for example, if I click on forecast, you'll notice there's a couple different stages, but none of them are qualification or identified decision makers. And that's all driven through your settings area. So when you're coming through and you're configuring your sales stages, you'll see the sales plan category. And here you have pipeline, forecast, and then won and lost. So won and lost, they're always just like this. Sometimes people will have multiple losses in there, multiple win or lose scenarios. Typically not recommended, but certainly it's possible. Usually what you'll end up with is something that looks like this, where all of your beginning stages with the lower probability, they will go into your pipeline category. So yes, you might close it, but it's not a sure thing yet. It's still fairly low probability. But then towards the end of your process, you'll define one or a couple stages which are part of your forecast. This is where you're saying, I'm pretty sure that this is going to close during this period. So that way you can get a much clearer picture of how likely you are to actually meet your quota, and you can get early insights into, well, even with my forecast, it looks like I'm going to be short on my quota. So I better go take some action and move some deals from my pipeline and get them to further stages. So as an administrator, you'll come through and configure all this, and then that's what determines how these different boxes get built out. So you've got your pipeline, which is everything in that sales plan category. Forecast is everything in the forecast category. And then you've got attainment. So these are just all the deals that I've already closed. And what it'll do is it'll tell you whether you're short on your goal or whether you're exceeding your goal at this time. So you'll see when I'm looking at my larger 2015 goal, we're still running pretty short. Although we're projecting to be almost on track. So we're pretty darn close, but there's a little bit of progress left to go. Otherwise, when we move downwards, you'll just see a couple other cool looking dashboards. So just able to get a picture of, okay, well, I'm processing this many deals and you can see I'm winning a great percentage of them. So if I'm falling short on my quota, but I look like this, well, I can assume that that means I just need more leads and opportunities coming into the pipeline and I should be able to close them. Versus if you see very heavy in the red, well, you probably need to optimize your sales process so you get a higher closure rate. Then down here, you get some insights into your team. So yeah, when I'm looking at the 2015 level, everybody is pretty darn short on their goals, but if we go step in and just filter down to June, everybody's looking quite a bit better. You know, Kenny here is slaying it. Same thing with Susan. And then once again, I could click on these and go view the relevant data. So I can see exactly what Frank has actually closed so far. Okay, so that's the new sales planning application. And the last chunk of today's presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run you through a couple quick little tips and tricks. So if you're an existing user, I absolutely recommend doing each one of these, just kind of little things that I want to point out. I'm sure you'll find lots of other little nuggets. We'll be releasing more information over the upcoming weeks as we produce new videos and other information on the new application. But here's my 7 tips for you right here today. So number one is resizing the columns of those list layouts. So we talked about this a moment ago. this one's extremely important. It just makes a huge difference where, let's for example go to our contacts application. I don't think I've resized this one. And well, I guess that's not too bad. Let's see what our leads application looks like. Okay, so this one's pretty inefficient. What you see here is I got a ton of extra space on first and last name, email, company, lead status, and I've got information that's kind of stuck over here on the right. So I can make a lot better use of this space. I mean, maybe I want to see, I've got their close date in here. Maybe I want to see the potential amount. Maybe I want to see the source of the lead and who it's assigned to. But I can't do that with this current setup. So what I can do is I go into that list layouts, and now, although you could resize the columns like one off before, it would always forget what size your columns were. In the new system, when you come and resize these, it actually becomes part of your layout. So here, when I'm collapsing all this down, I'm just simply going to create a bunch more space for free. And then I'm going to be able to now display more fields inside of here. So maybe I don't actually want created by. Maybe I want the amount, the territory, get rid of the amount and close date. I'll do like territory, rank, get rid of that. And maybe I want like their state. Oh, and lead source, that's another good one. Lead source, perfect. So come through, do some more resizing. Basically, this is just a little bit of administrative effort, and the end result is we should end up with a nice looking setup that just really shows a lot more information. Okay, so I adjust that, and then look at the difference that I just made. So you take 2 minutes of your time, you just go to each application, change these around, and you're gonna make life easier for every employee who comes in here, because now instead of having to click on each record to go get the state and the lead source, I'm able to get it right there at a glance. So very small improvement from a technical standpoint, very big from your usability standpoint. Okay, so the next one, simple and straightforward. There's actually a few features if you've been using the help desk system in the cases app. You notice, well, I can't export a list of cases. So we've always had it inside of the CRM apps, or we've had it for quite some time, but this version wasn't available in cases. So you'll just see that there's a couple kind of general features that have been now reintroduced, like all the standard functionality that you see in all the V6 apps or all the V5 apps from before. It'll now be applied to each app that gets upgraded right here. So just the ability to go and pull like a custom report of your cases down to a spreadsheet. Small, but very useful feature. So this is a cool little one, browsing tags by the left navigation. So definitely some businesses are a lot more heavy into tag usage than others. So let's hop in here to see. So I've got just a couple tags in here, like people who are going to receive a Christmas card or something like that. So the idea is when you go through and you tag somebody, so let's just say this is like a high value contact. Then now, once I refresh the page, I'll be able to browse and just find everybody who is tagged as a high value contact. So before you could always go run a search and I could save a custom view. It really just eliminates the need to go through this process and just gives you a quick little shortcut right there built in out of the box. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this one earlier, applying a default list layout to views. And this will have a lot of different applications. It's once again just one of those things that can save you a click or two, but it can do it for you several times a day, and it can also do it for every employee in your team. So these little tweaks can really add up to savings for your business. And the way that you would analyze this is, let's say I go to the cases application and I click on by priority high. So you'll see mine actually defaults. When I go to cases, it defaults to my view of high priority cases. Now in this scenario, you see I have a column for high priority. On this particular view, priority doesn't matter. I know everything I'm looking at is high. So maybe I can make better use of that space by removing priority and adding something else. But for example, when I click on by status all, well, priority is important here. So I don't want to remove it from this view. And that's where the default list layout comes into play. So when I go into my views area, each one of these views, like by priority versus by status, now has a list layout. So out of the box, they're all going to default to overview, which is the first one that's your general default. But then what I could do is I could create one, and maybe I call it my priority view, or maybe it has some other purpose. And then what I'll do here is I'll go remove that priority because I don't need that. And maybe what I'll do is I'll take that space to show more of the description. So So I'll go do my resizing so I can get everything fit in here. And I'll give plenty of room to summary and description. And now what'll happen is I can assign that new list view to this. So you'll see I'm showing priority, should be my list layout for the priority view. And then because my default homepage is set to priority, every time I come to the Cases app, you'll now see that it loads up this, and it loads up my priority view. But if I switch back over and I say, okay, show me all new cases, well, I get my priority back right there. So it's just one of these little tricks that gives you a lot more customization options, should give you some decent time savings there. So brand new email forwarding feature has been added to email to case. I'm actually not really going to run through this too much. Just if you go into the settings of email to case, if you've never configured it before, you'll see the configuration options look a little bit different, where it'll give you an email address that you're supposed to forward to. It's a lot more reliable and faster than the existing system. So instead of having like the 5-minute sync time for a case to be created, one of the advantages is it should now occur within just a few seconds of receiving an email. So the whole auto acknowledgement and everything, it'll just fire off quite a bit faster. And then you'll also see this email forwarding technology come into play to not replace IMAP entirely, but to supplement it. So the other advantage is when we roll this out to the general user base, it also means all of your typical incoming emails, like from a contact, will also come in almost immediately. Although your sent folder sync will still be powered by this IMAP connector here, and that still runs on the 5-minute interval. Okay, almost wrapped up here. The last two items, so territories for opportunities, now default to values from customer record. So this is just a little one. Once again, just trying to save you some clicks here. So previously when you entered an opportunity, it has the field for territory and market and such down here. And yeah, I mean, I could go select these right now. I could go type in a territory. But the idea is when I'm doing a deal with the customer, well, the customer has a territory tied to it. So what it'll do is it'll just read the customer, it'll grab the territory, and automatically assign it to the opportunity. Just, once again, removing a few clicks for your team. And the last one. So this is all about just navigating around in general, because one thing I haven't shown you here is, well, as I'm doing this, I can hit the back button on my browser a bunch of times, and we can go back through each step that we've been running through up until now. So for existing users, I'm sure you realize how important that is for just ease of use, but it also means you can start to do things like this, where maybe I've got a couple hot links that I like to bounce around, and I don't want to click around the app to get the reports, so I just want to quickly see my inflow trend of cases. Then I want to hop over, I want to check out like my opportunities by lead source. Basically, what I'm doing is clicking on one of these reports, and you just bookmark that link. All the links will load completely on their own. As long as you're logged into the system, you can navigate around like this. You can copy any sort of links. Another cool example is like, let's say I'm working on an opportunity and I want to get a colleague's opinion on it. One thing I can never do before is like somehow get them linked into the deal itself. Well, that's now changed. So now, I mean, I could copy this link. I could send an email to a colleague. I could just paste it in right there. And then when they come back in, all they have to do is click on the link. It'll go straight to that particular opportunity. So now you can send cases, you can send opportunities, a project. You can just link people to things. Once again, just trying to save time for each one of your users. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today's presentation. Thank you all for watching, and we just want to invite you, if you have not received the CRM V6 upgrades yet, please reach out to us at support@apptivo.com. We're actually rolling out the upgrades early to any select users, and absolutely, if anybody has feedback and features that they'd like to see in the future, we're all ears. So, once again, thanks for attending, and we'll see you next time.